We gotta work what kind of voice you're looking for this particular thing. Do you want this, deep and, high there? Or are you looking for something a little bit lighter to play with? I don't know, darling, but I'll do whatever
I'm
is
talking
required.
away because I am voiceover man. Oh no, to infinity and beyond, and much of that, and all of this talking.
Hello in the
in a
booth.
world.
This is the booth saying hello to the guys in the studio pushing the knobs. Good morning.
In a world where time forgot, where man is insignificant in the whole run of things. Is that the kind of thing we're looking for here?
During the course of 1 week, the situation in the Middle East has deteriorated dramatically.
It's beyond our understanding. Centered around the city of Jerusalem, events touching the lives of every living creature on Earth. The message is a warning.
How could you not be completely absorbed by that little trailer? And I'm very pleased to be back here. Certainly, the statement, "Only the wise will understand and live," is enough to grab your attention. The producers very kindly approached me, I think because I'm a bit of a skeptic, because I'm not particularly religious. It's a topic that is so interesting. They asked me if I would like to go on the journey of a lifetime. How could I refuse? So now I have this dossier with lots of documents in, and I'm not given too much information because together we're all going to explore this. But I have looked at a sort of an overview of where we're going, and if this transpires to be true, it's going to be life-changing for all of us. There are those who claim that ancient civilizations have recorded visitations from mystical beings, visitors from other worlds and dimensions. They say that they came to warn mankind of future events that will affect our very existence. On May 14th, 1948, the first in the series of these events have become international news. It is claimed that now over 100 events have seen fulfillment with deadly accuracy. It does sound like a lot of science fiction. However, some of the headings that I've already seen are things that are happening now. So, in order to begin this journey, I think the first thing that we need to do is investigate the scrolls. Let's see if they can be authenticated. Let's see if they are what they profess to be.
As you can see, we're in Jerusalem because this is where the Dead Sea Scrolls are kept, at the Israel Museum at a specially built place called the Shrine of the Book. Well, there's no doubt as to the authenticity of both the Old and New Testament. They are documents from antiquity. The Dead Sea Scrolls have shown us that the Bible, the books of the Old Testament certainly existed more or less in the same form that we have them now in 2nd, 1st century BC. The New Testament, content-wise, is easily a genuine 1st century CE Jewish book. The Bible is clearly the most important book ever written. It's extremely special. It's a unique document written in 3 different languages by many different people from very different social and geographical backgrounds over a long period of time. It's a remarkable document that coheres very well. When you step back and look at the whole thing, it has a remarkable cohesion to it. So the point is, you cannot prove that the Bible is historical in every respect. That's not possible. It's putting an unfair burden of proof on the Bible, an unrealistic one. But the other point is that nothing has been discovered that has disproved the Bible. And actually a lot of things which have been discovered lend the Bible a certain credence.
I'm now going to read our first three prophetic events. Israel will be dispersed, despised, and regathered. And these particular events are apparently a sign to the world. The apocalyptic countdown has begun. Then the Lord will scatter you among all nations, from one end of the earth to the other. Among those nations you will find no repose, no resting place for the sole of your foot. You will live in constant suspense, filled with dread both night and day, never sure of your life.
This is God speaking, and I will take the children of Israel from among the nations, wherever they have gone, and will gather them from every side and bring them back into their own land. Now, the point of this passage is there's never been a point in history where the Jews have been gathered back to the land of Israel and been given back their land and given back their nationhood from all the nations round about, except in 1948.
Jews were yearning to go back to Israel. For centuries, we direct our hearts toward Jerusalem, the navel of the world to us. Jews were hoping to come to Jerusalem all along, so this is really a fulfillment of a prophecy.
When the words of the prophets come out of the book and materialize and become reality, and the Jewish people come back home to their homeland and establish the Jewish state for the first time in 2,000 years, nothing comparable to it in the history of mankind.
This is Rabbi Richman, and he says, if you had told a Jew who was about to enter the gas chamber that Israel would soon become a nation again and that the Jews would be on the other side of the gun for the first time in 2,000 years, you would not have had to put him in it, because he would have died laughing. For them, this was impossible, for they were a people with no hope. So we've looked at the prophecies of dispersion, and certainly there's every evidence to show that the Jews were dispersed from Israel. We've looked at them being despised. Adolf Hitler doing his very best to get rid of every Jew on the planet, hating them with a passion. Why?
The head of Hezbollah says, if all the Jews gather in Israel, it will save us the trouble of going after them worldwide.
It's interesting how the prophecies seem to be pretty accurate. This is a prophecy from Zechariah, and it's about 2,500 years old. And in the day I will make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all peoples. All who lift it or burden themselves with it shall be sorely wounded, and all the nations of the earth shall come and gather together against it.
Israel itself, the very existence of Israel, of course, if you look at the history, is problematic for Muslims across the region, because it was a country that had many faiths within it. The claims to that land are contested, and they remain contested. So a state, Israel, that claims to have single claim over that land, and a claim that is based upon a single religion, namely Judaism, is problematic for others in that region who also have some claim to that land. So there's a history that goes back not just into the 20th century, but for thousands of years.
The process continues. And though we were facing a major catastrophe, and the feeling was that the experiment of establishing a Jewish state was about to come to an end, someone from above had other plans. And within 6 days we managed to overcome our enemies in each and every one of our borders and to reunite Jerusalem, the capital of the Jewish people, the capital of the state of Israel, but the capital of God in the world, as was announced 3,000 years ago by King David.
So, despite the huge resources of the Syrian, Egyptian and Jordanian military against the very tiny, limited Israeli army, Jerusalem fell back into Israeli hands in 1967 to become the capital of Israel again, even though the rest of the world would insist that Israel's capital is Tel Aviv.
Jerusalem is not a settlement, it's our capital.
Moving on, Zephaniah, and this is taken from about 622 BC. Then I will restore to the peoples a pure language, that they all may call on the name of the Lord, to serve him with one accord.
When I ask you, Ma shmech, what is your name? I speak to you in biblical language. Yeah, maybe you can say that this is a miracle. You brought people from all corners of the earth, speaking, I don't know how many dozens of languages into one country, and you revived this beautiful sleeping beauty into a language of use.
The dossier also tells me about another prediction by the prophet Ezekiel, some 2,600 years ago, and says that in the last days the ancient Jewish currency of the shekel will be revived. And guess what? Dispersed, despised, regathered with Jerusalem as its capital, language restored, and of course the shekel. All predicted, all true. So, you can look at this two ways right now. We could say it's a bunch of coincidences, or we can go further and think, is there actually something in this? What do you think? Let's find out more. Nearly 3,000 years ago, the prophet Isaiah predicted that water will gush forth in the wilderness and streams in the desert. The burning sand will become a pool, the thirsty ground bubbling springs. This is Isaiah 740 BC. I will set pines in the wasteland, the fir and the cypress together. In days to come, Israel will take root. She will bud and blossom and fill the world with fruit. They will say, this land that was laid waste has become like the Garden of Eden. The desert and the parched land will be glad. The wilderness will rejoice and blossom. Like the crocus, it will burst into bloom.
First people who came here saw nothing but salty water, desert, and it was quite a big adventure. Right from the beginning, they would try to establish orchards. They tried to grow all kind of orchards. When I came into the business, I found plums, peaches, apricot, pears, and all kind of fruit. Now we have the biggest olive orchard in the country, and we are exporting the olive oil into the world, and it seems that it's going well.
The mountains will drip with sweet wine. All the hills shall flow. I will bring back the captives of my people Israel. They shall build the waste cities and inhabit them. They shall plant vineyards and drink wine from them. They shall also make gardens and eat fruit from them. We see that happening now. Israel shall blossom and bud and fill the face of the world with fruit.
just some of the produce from Israel. Pomegranates, peppers, marble cake, baby peppers, melons, chocolate, and you can see somebody's already had a little nibble. Israeli wine. Smells good. Very good. Very good. So, Israel is in place again. Jerusalem is at the heart of everything, and the land is blossoming. And my dossier tells me the predictions we're going to look at now are events that have been happening for many, many years. However, what gives these signs greater importance is that in the latter or last days, these specific events will increase in intensity and destructive force. So according to the prophecies, we will see an increase in catastrophes. Well, I don't think anyone here would disagree with the things that have been happening. You only need to turn on your television and you'll see footage of floodings, tsunamis, earthquakes. It seems all too common. In fact, so much so, I think in the last 5 or 10 years, we've seen so much television footage of these natural disasters that you're kind of used to it. It's not shocking anymore. You will hear of wars and rumours of wars. Nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines, earthquakes, signs in the sun, moon and stars. Nations will be in anguish at the roaring and tossing of the sea. Men will faint from terror, apprehensive of what is coming on the world. Such things must happen. All these are the beginning of birth pains. So that means more natural disasters, more often. And it seems like we're seeing evidence of that now. Lawlessness, moral decline, and the greed is good culture. There will be terrible times in the last days. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, without love, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of the good, treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure, child abuse, granny rape, the drug culture, mindless crimes. Okay, taking a look at these predictions, I'm beginning to understand how indeed these prophecies are integrated. It requires one event to precede the next, and they build upon each other to make the bigger picture. So next on the list is spiritual deception, which is apparently one of the greatest signs that the end is closing in.
Over the years, there's been an increase in the number of people that have contacted Reach Out Trust that feel they have been deceived by some churches that they went to, by some groups that they thought were Christian and were not. And they found that in the end, it's not the truth as they were told it to be. And as we began to investigate and look at this, we found it very interesting that the Bible talks about a period of time, the end of the age. And it says that in this period of time, at the end of the age, this very deception that these people have is going to increase.
I had no idea that people within the church were no longer really studying the Bible, which, as I said to Dr. Biro, I thought was their main book of rules, if you like. So if people aren't studying the Bible and are not knowing what it's saying, they're therefore relying on preachers who are preaching whatever seems to be on their mind and important to them on that day.
But it is clear to all concerned that when it comes to nuclear weapons, we have reached a decisive point. This is not simply about America's interests. It's about preventing a nuclear arms race in the Middle East that could lead this region and the world down a hugely dangerous path.
We need a leader, and we need a core of people surrounding that leader, not just one man. But we need the leader to deliver the message. In other words, a new world order. not the sort that you hear about on conspiracy theory websites. Not the sort that's all about chipping people and, control of some inner coterie. But a new world order which actually works for everyone and creates prosperity and starts with regional infrastructures and eventually moves towards a proper, prosperous, global civilization of which everyone on the planet can be proud, and which leads to a new, a new age for mankind. I'm not saying that's what we're necessarily going to wind up with. I'm saying that with the right kind of leadership, well, I'm a positive person. I mean, it's very difficult not to, to do this sort of work if you're not, because you'd be constantly depressed. But no, so what you're really wondering about is the flip side. I've presented the positive vision of the New World Order, and you're saying, what's the negative side of the New World Order? Oh, right, well, that's actually not so hard.
Cannot move towards a world government without a crisis and without people losing faith in their national sovereignty. They need to have confidence in something that'll supersede that and that'll rescue them, in essence.
We could wind up in a situation where an attack by Israel on Iran actually triggers a series of orchestrated events around the world through Iran's proxies. As a result of that, we wind up with people being scared. And they'll be scared because the war is effectively, in that case, going to be brought to their doorstep. It's not something which is happening in the Middle East. It's not something which is happening, on board a ship in the Straits of Hormuz. It's something which is actually happening in their day-to-day lives. And if there were a series of such orchestrated attacks, then I think you'd be looking at people wanting some kind of leadership, someone who could protect them. And then you would be looking at state control. They'll say, keep us safe. They will be handing themselves over to the state and saying, what can you do to keep us safe? And yes, that could result in the wrong sort of New World Order. That could result in tyranny. That could result in the rise of leaders of the Hitler type.
Imagine no nation states. Imagine one global government and someone like Hitler coming to power. What's to stop that? Who's to fight him?
We hope that never happens, because what it would do for our civil liberties and what it will do for, the nature of man himself is frightening.
He, the Antichrist, also forced everyone, small or great, rich or poor, free or slave, to receive a mark on his right hand or his forehead, so that no one could buy or sell unless he had the mark. Revelation 20, verse 4. And I saw the souls of those who had been beheaded because of their testimony for Jesus and because of the word of God. They had not worshipped the beast or his image and had not received his mark on their foreheads or their hands.
We're not against any particular technology per se. It's that once you've got these technologies in place, if you haven't got proper safeguards, if you haven't got proper oversight, if you've just got this basic presumption, as pretty much all governments and companies seem to have, that once they've got the data, it's theirs. What they fail to see is that that data is ours. If it's about me, it's mine. Yeah? And if it's going to do something or damage to anyone, it's going to do damage to me. Yeah? Which is why it's so important that when it comes to control, the person who should be in control is me and you, and not some, overarching international, national, system that says, oh, well, in order to, earn your crust and pay for things and do this, that, and the other, you have to basically live under a constant state of surveillance. We have to learn from history on this one. We can't just assume because, oh well, it's the 21st century now, Hitler, Stalin, Mao, Pol Pot, all these people, that's all in the history books, that all happened then, it couldn't possibly happen again. I'm afraid that would be very, very naive. The very fact that one person can be identified as being a part of one group and another person can be identified as being another group can end up being a death sentence.
Well, when you examine it like this, you think, well, this is the technology is unquestionably there. I have 2 dogs; they're both chipped. The wherewithal is there. It's a relatively simple process, and it certainly can happen. It may probably be happening in test sites around the world as we speak. Scary to think about it. And another thing that crosses my mind is it's clearly stated that it's the right hand. Why would it be the right hand? What significance is that? And if you don't play ball with these people, you get your head chopped off. In what part of the world would that happen? Does that happen? Certainly worth thinking about.
I'm optimistic still that a figure like Netanyahu can create consensus or move Israel in the right direction. That's not based on any fact, because anybody that looks at the situation today, anybody you talk to, will be quite pessimistic about the outcome.
Too much blood has been shed. All of us have a responsibility to work for the day when the mothers of Israelis and Palestinians can see their children grow up without fear, when the Holy Land of the three great faiths is the place of peace that God intended it to be.
Does the US step up to the plate, or doesn't it? We'll wait to see. We hope the news will be good, because if not, I see a very, very destabilizing effect for the region and for the world.
Today, an unprecedented threat to humanity looms large. A radical Iranian regime, armed with nuclear weapons, could bring an end to the era of nuclear peace that the world has enjoyed for the last 65 years.
So the prophecies seem to be quite accurate. Spooky. Is this all a coincidence? I'm thinking not. I don't know what you think. Right, our next chapter. A mountain splits water from under a great temple, a gate sealed. On that day his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives east of Jerusalem, and the Mount of Olives will be split in two from east to west, forming a great valley. On that day living water will flow out from Jerusalem, half to the Dead Sea and half to the Mediterranean Sea.
I've been working in the site of the city of David for almost 10 years. I'm an archaeologist trained at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Israel is situated along the Syro-African Rift, the fault line that separates between Europe and Africa. Earthquakes have affected this region from antiquity. The prophets talk about how, in the end of days, an earthquake will split Mount Olives in half, and the waters of Jerusalem, like these below us, will both flow to the Dead Sea and to the Mediterranean. But where we are now, as we said, earthquakes have affected this region and have the potential of changing its topography.
The man brought me back to the entrance of the temple, and I saw water coming out from under the threshold of the temple towards the east.
The Torah obligates us. Make me a sanctuary and I will dwell among the people. And this is exactly what we are doing. We are trying to build the house of God, the third temple, as prophesied by the prophets, each and every one of them, because that is the center core of the book, to respond to the command, to the obligation of the Word of God. Make me a sanctuary and I will dwell amongst you. So we began with the major vessels, the showbread table, the incense altar, the menorah, the musical instruments, the vestments of the high priest, and step by step, we have already concluded over 70 of the vessels. If we only began 25 years ago with a handful of people, we presently have over 100,000 people who visit us annually. We have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people from all around the world who hook into our website daily and are trying to be part of this godly, historical phenomenon. The time has come that the world be reunited around the one and only God, where God has chosen, Jerusalem. From the very first moment we actually begin, it should take between a year to 2 years to build.
Then the man, an angel, brought me back to the outer gate of the sanctuary, the one facing east, and it was shut. The Lord said to me, "This gate is to remain shut." Ezekiel again. The man brought me back to the entrance of the temple, and I saw water coming out from under the threshold of the temple towards the east. This water flows towards the eastern region, and it goes down into the Arabah, where it enters the sea. Swarms of living creatures will live wherever the rivers flow. There will be large numbers of fish, because this water flows there and makes the salt water fresh. So where the river flows, everything will live. Okay, so not all of this has come to pass yet. The temple is still to be built, if it's to be built, but certainly looking at it, preparations are very much underway, down to finite detail. It's almost as though they're looking at the prophecies as an instruction manual in terms of what to make for the Messiah. We've seen evidence of water under Jerusalem, so something that was predicted 2,500 years ago seems to be based pretty much on fact. It's all proving to be very, very feasible and very possible, and very spooky that it was predicted 2,500 years ago when they didn't know about fault lines, and we've just seen that Jerusalem is on top of a fault line. Again, the whole we can't say coincidence. There's something going on here. There's something that is seemingly real about all these prophecies. Moving on, the rise of an Eastern superpower and the construction of a great dam. Jesus speaks in his revelation to the Apostle John, "Release the 4 angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates." And the 4 angels who had been kept ready for this very hour and day and month and year were released to kill. The number of the mounted troops was 200 million. I heard their number. Another revelation. The 6th angel poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and its water was dried up to prepare the way for the kings from the east. Then they gathered the kings together to the place that in Hebrew is called Armageddon. In terms of the technology and the dam and the drying of the Euphrates, it's uncannily spooky that could be done now, and again, how that could have been predicted. I don't know, what do you think? Well, here we are, here's the big one. Armageddon and the day the earth will stand still. Jesus speaks in Revelation 16 verse 16. Then they gathered the kings together to the place that in Hebrew is called Armageddon. Jesus speaks as quoted by Matthew. For then there will be great distress, unequalled from the beginning of the world until now, and never to be equalled again. If those days had not been cut short, no one would survive. But for the sake of the elect, those days will be shortened.
There are all sorts of ways in which one can cut the cake, if you like. You could say, for example, that the Americans and Russians, between them, possess 97% of the world's nuclear arsenals. In that sense, if there was going to be an accident or some war and all-out nuclear exchange, then it's most likely to be between those two. Out of the states with nuclear weapons, it's very difficult to pin, though I would say of them, Pakistan is probably the biggest problem. But then again, Israel, I haven't mentioned Israel. Israel exists in a very difficult relationship with its neighbours, and although none of its neighbours yet have a nuclear weapon to balance them, and nobody really seriously thinks that Israel will launch nuclear weapons anytime soon, it could very quickly get into some sort of conflict situation where nuclear weapons may come into play. That's more likely the closer Iran gets to acquiring a nuclear weapons capability. And that Iranian-Israeli relationship is one that I think we need to watch over the next few years as a potential spark point.
Jeremiah 25, verse 33. At that time, those slain by the Lord will be everywhere, from one end of the earth to the other. They will not be mourned, or gathered up, or buried, but will be like refuse lying on the ground. I have the vision in my head of millions of slain bodies lying around, whether it's as a result of some massive device, megaton bomb, nuclear bomb. But from what this is saying, it is talking about the whole globe. It's utterly frightening and sadly possible.
If nuclear weapons were used, either in the Middle East or I would say in the India-Pakistan relationship, you would, or if you had a nuclear weapon explode in London or New York or Paris or any city in the world, it would be a game changer. You know, September the 11th multiplied 100. And the reason for that is because people would recognise the vulnerability of modern society. You would get a significant immediate reduction in the confidence of urban living. You know, you would get a change in the way people related to each other on the international scene. And then you'd have two significant options. You'd have, we all need nuclear weapons to defend ourselves option, business as usual, but actually everybody engaging, and a distinct deterioration of security, and then a sort of Mad Max scenario. Or you could get a recognition that actually the problem, the threat from nuclear weapons is the nuclear weapons themselves, and we need to triple or multiply our efforts to get rid of them once and for all. And I know that's an optimistic scenario. You know, nuclear weapons are used and then everyone wakes up to their senses. But we will face that choice.
Well, that certainly put a very harrowing image in my head. I don't know about you. We've all seen the same thing. First of all, we've got to accept whether or not what we've seen is going to come to pass in the future, in the not too distant future from the looks of things. I think there are only two conclusions that you can make. One is that it's all rubbish. It's not true and it's not going to happen, and therefore we have nothing to worry about. We might as well go off and say, well, that was quite entertaining, and have a good rest of your lives, which is fine. The other is that you accept that this is the future, and then you have to work out how you're going to deal with it and what you're going to do about it. And that, to me, is the hardest.